Welcome everyone to the 200th episode of the GDL podcast. We've got a really special one today here. We're looking at the past, present, future of GDL. We've had a big rebrand, which you guys might have seen if you're part of the community. And we've got the expert here to talk about it, who is Stuart Ville, founder of Game Dev Local. Say hello,
Hello.
Stuart. And thanks for joining me today. And also, it's probably important to say I'm a new host as well. My name's Tom Morgan. I have joined GDL for a little while now, a few months back. This is my first podcast, but in general, in the games industry, I'm the biz dev partnerships guy. So we'll probably come on to that in a little bit, but I'm here to kind of help Game Dev Local out with some of the awesome stuff they're doing over the next few months. It's an exciting episode. 200. Does it feel 200?
Oh man, it's crazy because, it's serendipitous because obviously we've got the rebrand and stuff and everything that we want to talk about. So it landing on the 200th episode is quite a nice touch. But we've released an episode. There was only a short period where we didn't manage to release an episode every Monday, but for the most part, for the last 4 years, we've released an episode every Monday. It's kind of crazy whenever I'm like fiddling about with YouTube, and I'll notice like one of the old videos that I did, and I'll be like, just click on it just out of like curiosity, and I watch like the first 5-10 minutes, and I'm like, oh my god, we've come so far since then. just like I guess a lot of it's like confidence in front of the camera, but it's just been growing. You know what we thought we were going to be doing, and where we've ended up. I mean, we're not too far from what I had originally envisaged. If anything, it is different, but it's kind of more.
Yeah. That's exciting. I mean, I've always been a part of the community since I've been in the industry and seen you guys kind of doing loads of awesome events, loads of kind of networking things, and I've been kind of in the Discord floating around for a little while. So it's been quite a cool full circle moment for me from when I joined the industry to now being part of the team and helping out with such an awesome community, which is now huge, right? I mean, there's a lot of members, a lot of things going on, something like 55 events a year, which is an awful lot to organize.
It's good to have it all.
Exciting times, I guess.
It all now. So I mean, for the first like 3.5 years, it's funny that for the first 3.5 years it was like super hard and a lot of chaos, and just since January this year, everything's become quite a bit smoother. It's still stressful, but it's a lot smoother. Now when we look back at how much we're doing each year, it's quite a lot, and it's crazy to think that we're now comfortable with that enough that we can look at pushing and providing a bit more.
Yeah. It's really exciting. There's a lot going on, isn't there? And I guess that's a good thing for the audience members out there. Part of the community, you might have already seen that, we've rebranded from Game Dev London to Game Dev Local. And for anyone who's not in the group now, we're Game Dev Local from here on in. But it's probably a good opportunity to just ask you why the rebrand from London to Local and what prompted it, and what are you kind of hoping to achieve out of it?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we first started, we were just a little regular meetup called Game Dev Lunch, and when I joined, that was happening religiously, the last Thursday of every month. It still does. It's now in the Discord, but we're hoping to bring that back, but it's currently still in the Discord. I just kind of had this idea that because we'd started looking at doing another event that was then called Dinner Devs and has come back and is now Dinner Devs, and I just started thinking that our Facebook page was Game Dev Lunch, but we were also doing this other event, and I had ideas for doing other stuff like podcast. So I just suggested that we create this Game Dev London. And Game Dev London at the time, because we were Game Dev Lunch, so everyone kind of knew it as like a GDL already. So Game Dev London, especially because we were doing most of our things were happening in London. The large body of people were in and around London, and it just felt like a really good branding. I came up with the visuals for it pretty quickly, and then it was all guns blazing. Basically, we created the podcast. Yeah, put the branding, like created all of our social accounts. It's just an absolute whirlwind. But the thing is, I think what tended to happen, and I think it happened almost immediately, really, when we were doing regular game jams, and because, especially as like COVID came along pretty swiftly as well, we realised that our members were, especially with online, were coming in from all over the place. So not London, outside of London, and then outside of the UK. And then when we did Global Game Jam, I think we had something like 300 new members join over that first Global Game Jam. And yeah, we had people that were like from France and Berlin and like all these like other places, people who had decided to join our Game Jam site rather than the one that was local to them. I think London kind of has that draw. There's a lot of, I think everyone knows that there's a really strong hub for game dev in London. And so if you can get connected to that, it's really useful. But yes, almost straight away, people were like, "Oh, is it okay that I'm not from London? I know it's Game Dev London, but I'm not from London. Is that okay?" And we were always explicit in saying, we were open and inclusive, and like the podcast, we keep the diversity of the podcast not just in terms of people's backgrounds, but also their roles and their level of experience, because it's important for us that there's this huge level of diversity. And that all voices are heard and are valid, and realistically, like, you need to mix with lots of different types of people for your creativity to not just become stale. If you're in a little silo bubble or echo chamber, then you're just going to do the same kind of stuff, and your brain isn't going to expand, and your ideas aren't going to get broadened. So so I mean, as much as I have loved, obviously I created the branding, so I loved Game Dev London from a real, like, heartstrings kind of place. But I would say probably within the first 2 years, I wanted to change it. And I'd been discussing changing it. And we never really found, like, the right thing to change it to, or, like, what the visual should be. And so just towards the end of last year, I settled on it, keeping our branding kind of similar with the GDL, but we needed a new L, and it made sense to me that local was at the heart of it, because basically we want to be like a hub. So when you Google Game Dev Local, or where are game devs local to me, we will be able to say, this is, especially if you're in London at the moment, we'll be able to say, well, this is what's going on in game dev, here's how you get connected, and here's how you get into the industry, and all of this kind of stuff that we already do. But also, obviously, as part of bringing you on, we're looking at having a broader scope, especially within the UK, where we partner up with other entities similar to ourselves, so that when people do search for where is game dev in my local area, if they happen to be in Leeds, we can tell them who's over there, and who's operating over there, and what events are happening over there. If they're happening in Brighton or wherever it may be, we're able to give them that resource and that information. Because the core thing for us is that we're supporting UK indie development. Partly selfishly, because we're UK indie devs, but also there's not enough support for UK indie devs. There's a lot of talk about the supports around, and there's a lot of good entities that are doing, like, a lot of work. But I say there's a lot. There's a handful of us, like Yuki, Into Games, Code Coven. There's like a little handful of people in and around the UK, and like London centric, who are trying to support the indie dev community. But it's all still a little bit like all over the place, and there's just not enough of it. So that's kind of mostly what we're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good point actually. What do you think? I mean, of course, there's lots of different support that indie devs might need, but are you saying that there's a lot of talk about it, and maybe it's not ideal in the current situation? What's the kind of the perfect setup to support indies? What do you think they need the most? Is it about helping them develop games? Is it about getting them recruited full-time roles? Is it about learning skills? What kind of things are most important for our indie devs and our
But
community?
fortunately for us, we have a rather large community. Um, we have around about 4,000 members, and we were able to ask them. And by and large, a lot of them do request the same thing, so opportunities to network and create their own opportunities and meet other people, meet their peers, share their work, try and find people to work with, find their next job, or even understand the industry. A lot of the stuff that we do is just knowledge share, so that there's a central place for people to learn about the industry, and learn the right kind of things about the industry. And then
Yeah.
I've always, obviously, as someone who is an indie developer with my own studio, I've always been aware that there's a lot of support needed for indie, for people who want to run their own studio or who are in a small studio, whether that's like a small collective of 2 or 3 or 4 people or whatever. There's a lot of information out there, but there's also a lot of, you can't quite say misinformation, but there's a lot of stuff that's like conflicting in terms of what you should and shouldn't do. Fortunately for me, I've experienced a lot of the stuff that you shouldn't do, so it's very easy for me to be quite clear on what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of support out there, or at least a lot of information on how to make a game. There's not a lot of, or at least, there's not enough out there on the running of a business in games, whether it's like just how you market your own game, or how you might set yourself up as like a solo developer, or like sole trader, independent,
Yeah.
running a small team. Do you run as like a limited company, and all of the baggage that comes with that? Because a lot of us, me included, when we're starting out, we have a cool idea that we want to kind of look at producing, or we've kind of been tinkering with something and it looks like it's going to do, like, it looks like it could do quite well. And so we're all gung-ho on like, let's make a game and just push it out there and see what happens, which is fine. You can absolutely do that and you can learn quite a lot from it. But I think if you do want to take it a bit more seriously and you do want to make like your career games, especially from this kind of running your own studio perspective, then you need a bit more than that. You need someone who can give you advice on like how you might set up things like how to form a team, how to manage a team. There's just so much. And right now, obviously, I think it's more important now than it's ever really been. With all of the mass layoffs, there's a lot of people who are finding themselves adrift, and there's a lot of people who got made redundant and then got a new job, and then 2 weeks later were made redundant again, and they're kind of sick of that situation, because it used to feel like there was a level of security in working for a studio. And I think a lot of those people, especially now that there's thousands and thousands of them, will be looking at doing it themselves and how they might do that. We're already seeing it. We're seeing that there's an increase in indies and indie studios, whether they are registered or not. We're seeing a lot more of them popping up. And also the industry is in like a really weird kind of ripe place for it. We have, especially because of COVID, like there's a gap right now. There's a drought in games, and so I think a lot of people are going to find that publishers are looking for a game to start to support, and so indies need support to both get themselves ready for that kind of situation, and to figure out whether or not what they're doing is something viable that they can take to a publisher. Because at the moment, the publishers that are out there, a lot of them don't have games like ready for launch. As an example, in 2025, 2026, there's like a big, from what we're hearing from the industry, there's like a big gap. So they're looking for games.
Interesting.
And so there's money to be had. But if you're starting out a new studio, you really want to make sure that if you're taking advantage of this opportunity, that you're doing it with something that can be quite solid. Because the temptation would be, we can chuck something together, we can get funding for it, it will get made, and it'll get released in 2025, and you'll make a bit of pocket change, but then like there's no future for your studio. Like your game might make a bit of money, but it could have made more money if you'd have been better prepared for the opportunity. So there's a lot of stuff like this that I've kind of seen on the horizon. Probably somewhere around the halfway through lockdown, I kind of suspected something like this was going to happen. And we've been talking about it, on the podcast and stuff. So, yeah.
Sure.
So our job now is to make sure that we're providing that support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are, of course, a lot of awesome games that come through the GDL community, and some really, amazing art, amazing, technical, professionals in the scene. But yeah, you're right. The business side of it is hugely important and has a whole set of functions itself that are really kind of hard to get your head around. So I think that is really important. And I think, me and you've already spoken about, a few upcoming talks and workshops and opportunities about that kind of the business side. And I know you guys do a lot across the podcast as well. So plenty of potential stuff for our audience to kind of take advantage of there. I guess the next question really is obviously, the big exciting rebrand, the move to Game Dev Local, shiny new branding, which is all very exciting and very pretty, and new website and bits and bobs. But I guess the next question is, and I suppose the most important question is, what's the impact for our members? What's the impact for them in terms of, how does it affect them being part of the community? Are there any kind of new and exciting things coming up that they should be aware of?
So, in order to provide all of this support, there's something that we're doing very directly. So, obviously, I say obviously, it might not be obvious at all, but we provide a lot of different things. So, between like events where you are just simply networking and making new connections, to something that has like workshops involved or talks involved, and Dinner Devs has now evolved into something like better than it was previously. So previously Dinner Devs was literally just developers meeting and talking with food involved, and now it's like a low-key personal showcase type thing. Essentially, I think when the one thing that people kind of want or struggle with when they're networking in general is that, yes, you want to make connections, but there's always this like little thing in the back of everyone's mind where, we're all trying to be friendly and make new contacts, but there's something that actually we kind of want to get from it. And it's really awkward and kind of unwelcome in the space to simply go, hey, can I show you my portfolio? Or, hey, can I show you my game? It really has to be something that is like kind of teased out in conversation, and it has to come organically through like a good vibing conversation. Like you have to vibe well with that person. And so it makes it really hard to put something in front of someone, either without it being too awkward or by actually just coming across as being like, it just feels a bit too pushy for networking, which tends to just by way of nature need to be a lot less formal. And so we create Dinner Devs so that it's a more relaxed environment, but at the same time you are expected to have with you your portfolio. You can have, I think we're going to have tables and stuff where you can have your portfolio, like your laptop open with your portfolio, or you can have your game open for people to view your game. And so it kind of greases that whole interaction, whereby it's specifically laid out that that's what we're here to do. Yes, we're going to still have those conversations and network and make friends, but you get to have the real terms exposure that you don't normally get from a networking event. So that's like one of the things that we're developing, we're already doing. But like I say, because we have like I guess you call it like a suite of events and workshops and things that we do. We're looking at how we can package up certain things and create new things for people with specific needs. So we're creating this thing called Pathways, where there will be one of the pathways is for someone who is focusing on their career in game development. So there will be tailored events and networking opportunities for those people, to help develop their career, whether it's like trying to get into the industry or find that next job in the industry or figure out where they want to go or what skills they might need. So providing workshops for that as well. And a lot of that we will do with our partners that we're building up. And then the other pathway is a lot more studio focused. In fact, it is specifically studio focused. So there will be tailored events, networking, and workshops to help support new studio startups. And we're looking at doing, at the moment, we're just trying to garner how much interest there is in it. I believe there's quite a lot. So you can, if you're listening, you can register on the website. You can register your interest in those new things. So that's what we're doing. We're taking a lot of the stuff that we already do, kind of building it into these two little packaged pathways for our members, and then trying to add additional things along with it.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So you've got those two pathways, one for students and one for studios, and they're kind of, if you're in those situations, if you're a student looking to get full-time employment or just learn more things, and if you're a studio looking to kind of go out on your own and run your own business, those are kind of really good and set up to, so we can help you like create workshops and create kind of, further learning opportunities, right? Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Anything else that's coming on with the new rebrand? Any exciting things? I mean, I suppose from my side, I'd probably say, we're looking at doing from a partnerships point of view. I've always looked at Game Dev Local from the outside of being the most awesome, wholesome community of indie devs, and very down to earth. But I guess one of the big things that I'm doing as part of my new role is looking at how we can partner with industry organizations and businesses to really kind of enhance what we do, and a lot of those things kind of follow on from some of the things we were talking about earlier. But yeah, I really want to kind of double down on us working with more publishers, more game scouts if you're looking to get your game signed, investors. We spoke about kind of getting your game signed and getting money to fund further development. Educational institutions as well. There's loads of really cool courses and loads of great ways to kind of learn across the UK and in various different formats, and lots of awesome publishers and service providers where, if you're interested in getting full-time work or you want to kind of take advantage of some of their softwares. I think a really exciting thing for us as well is, how do we get the likes of, Unity and the Unreal Engine and Godot and people involved with the community, because and various other game development engines, because it's a hugely important part of the community's time. So any kind of help there. And I guess, again, shout out to the community. If anyone's got anyone they'd love to work with or someone they're connected with, just let us know, in the Discord or wherever. Just email us, guys. We're always kind of looking for good ideas. So yeah, lots of that stuff to come down the line to really kind of enhance what we do. Yeah, I suppose the next question is really in terms of the new Game Dev Local and the kind of next steps and what comes down the line. Who do you think really stands to benefit the most from GDL? If there's any kind of audience members watching this, maybe they're not part of the Discord, or they don't come to the events, or there's someone looking to join the industry. What are the kind of benefits of being part of GDL, especially under this new vision?
I mean, I think essentially it's the volume of support that they can get. And one of the key things that we've always had and that we always keep at the heart of what we do is the community. There's so much that you can learn just from being part of a community, and I think there's kind of like this life cycle of people who join us, especially when they join the Discord. You kind of start out as someone who watches a few conversations, pokes around a little bit, and then you realize that people are asking each other questions all the time, and you might not do it straight away, but eventually they kind of tend to end up with like, there's something that I really want to know, and they realize that the best way to get that, like a quick answer, is to post it in the community. Obviously, we have community managers and mods that are kind of looking out for this kind of stuff. So even if you find that the community aren't as quick to answer it, we, the GDL team, especially now that there's like 50, I think there's more than 15 of us now. We're kept appraised of these kind of things, so that if we can answer them, then we dive in and answer them, and basically make sure that you get a really good answer to your question. But it does tend to be that because we have such a large community and such a wide range of experience within that community, that you do get a lot of the people who have been in the industry a long time able to answer those questions. So it's a really great resource just like to get you started. And then from there on, there's access to the smaller events that we do, the bigger events that we do. There's lots of stuff that will be, I guess you'd quite like one-off events or whatever, stuff where you can just go along and attend, whether it's make friends or make connections, whatever it is you need to do. So I just think that, there's just quite a lot of value that is provided by the community. And then obviously we're trying to build on top of that to make sure that we're doing even more.
Yeah. I attended. I mean, I've been to a few GDL events, but I was definitely that guy that was kind of floating around in the Discord, just liking a few things and being nosy at what was going on. But I was literally blown away by, and I mean, when we go to these sort of physical in-person events, I know that's not everyone's favorite thing all the time, but when you do go to them, obviously there's a lot of social anxiety and you're thinking, oh, am I going to enjoy this? Am I going to like people? But I was really blown away when we did the Barclays frenzy event with the we had our own GDL room about a month ago. That was just had so much fun, and like everyone is just so welcoming and so warm and so friendly, and it was just it was just a really nice, really good day. So I would encourage anyone listening, if you've not come down to one of our events, whether it's sort of a physical one or an online event, definitely come and check it out, because it's a really, really awesome way to kind of make new friends and make a few new friends. So that's really cool. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of some of the community engagement, some of the new initiatives. I guess I was going to ask a cheeky question. Is there any sneak previews of what might be coming in the future for GDL? Any kind of exciting events or workshops that, I mean, maybe some of the community might know about, but maybe just to give a little shout out about.
One of the things that we're currently working on, and we've already launched, is our it started with a rapid prototyping workshop, because a lot of the time whether you're trying to go it alone or whether you're trying to start your own little studio, it's really tempting, because it's really tempting to just run with the first idea that you have. So normally, like, you're inspired by something, it gives you an idea, and you go, oh, I bet that'd be a cool game. And you kind of know, what the mechanics might be for it, and you start building it. If you're a programmer, you start building it. If you're an artist, maybe you start like conceptualizing it so that you can work with someone. And invariably, you just start running with that idea. You're like, it feels really good. Like you had this moment of inspiration, gives you lots of good feels, dopamines rush in, and it's just so easy to get carried away with that. And run with it, and in a lot of cases that not a lot of cases, in some cases that works. You did just hit a vibe at the right time with the right idea, and you release it, and the audience just happens to be there. It's niche enough, like the stars align essentially. The problem is that there's a few of those stories out there that are quite big, and so people get this idea that that's a perfectly logical and great path to take. Whereas what we are trying to teach people is that if you have an idea, test the idea. And not only that, but like have some ideas around that idea, create like a whole handful of like really scrappy prototypes, something that just gives the essence of the idea that you've had, and then immediately test it with people. Just hand it to anyone, hand it to your mum, hand it to your friends, like have anyone play it and get feedback from it. That way, you end up, you might find that there's something that works from this prototype that but nothing else really kind of went well with it, but it's not enough for a game. And then one of your other prototypes has like a really cool thing, and maybe you can mash those together. And actually, when you do that, you end up with like a really solid prototype, or just one of the 5 or 6 prototypes that you've been testing. Someone goes, "This is cool. This is so much fun. You should definitely." The one thing that you would love to hear is someone to go, "I'd play this," or like, "I'd buy that," even better. And then if you get that kind of vibe from it, then you test it more. You build it a little bit, you test it a little bit, you build it a little bit, you test it a little bit. And so we've started creating these like workshops. Like I say, both for independents, like people who want to go solo, and people who have like a small team. So we've started doing that already this year. Trying to think what else we already have going on in the pipeline. I mean, obviously GDLX, our Indie Games Expo. If anyone has, if there's any indies out there who have been trying to showcase, you will no doubt have found that when you try and do one of the expos, even those that claim to be indie friendly, it's really expensive. And especially with the sea of indies that are joining or trying to come together now, the one thing that you're not going to have straight off the bat is like a couple of £1,000s to showcase at an event. So we make incredibly cheap showcasing events, and fortunately for us, the first one went really well and sold out. The second one went even better. I purposefully wanted to make it double in size, but it accidentally tripled in size. And this year we're doing it again on the 9th of August. We're going to go even bigger. And if people want to get involved in that, then just hit up gamedevlocal.com. It's going to take a while to get used to that. And check out the GDLX page. Because it's really... There's 2 things that are really valuable from that. One is that you get to have a whole bunch of people play your game and get feedback. A lot of the audience tends to be developers, so you get really solid feedback. The feedback that you get from a player audience is vastly different from the feedback you can get from a fellow developer. And quite often I see someone like a developer sitting and playing another developer's game. Not only is their feedback helpful, it's tactful. So because they understand how much work you've put into making this game, whereas the audience just don't get it, and they will say things that really like cut quite deep, even if it's like just raw, true honesty. It's so much better received from another developer, and also in some cases you get praise from your peers. They're like, "Oh my god, wait, how did you do that? Could you?" And then they're learning, so it's a really good space for that. So you get really solid feedback, but also you get to do some live playtesting. You get to sit back and watch someone play your game, and there's a lot that you can figure out from just watching someone play. Pro tip is always like, don't go and help the player unless they specifically turn and ask you for help, because your real players, when they're at home, you're not going to be standing around to help them, and you need to know what your game needs to tell the player in order for them to be able to play it.
That is a hot tip.
Pro tips.
Very cool. Very cool. So between those workshops and GDLX, you're doing the community can take advantage of prototyping, iteration, and then get feedback at GDLX from the community and some consumers. And that's really cool. And if the audience want to sign up for GDLX, it's on our website, gamedevlocal.com, and just check out the GDLX page, like Stu said. That's really cool. I mean, I guess, is there any kind of final thoughts for the community or anything you kind of want to say? I mean, actually, here's a good question. What's been your favorite moment across the history of GDL? Is there like a sort of a peak exciting moment that you had, or a fun moment?
My current one because throughout the years I always have like a new top moment, and then it gets trumped by the next big thing that we do. But my current one is actually still the last Global Game Jam that we did. We've been the number one UK site, Global Game Jam site, for 4 years. The first year, it just kind of happened naturally, which is so great. to do your first Global Game Jam site and to have it be number one in the UK was just awesome. But yeah, the fact that, in fact, that first one we were 12th globally. I think there's some insane number of countries that are involved in, and an insane number of, I think it's like 750 sites globally or something insane. So to be number 12 was really cool. And then we were 8th, and then we were 5th. And this year just gone, I really wanted us to hit 3rd. But we hit 2nd. So I think we were a little bit shy of getting 1st, and maybe we'll do that at the next one. But currently, that's my favourite.
Who was first?
Who was first? So China, essentially. And the thing with that is that it's a numbers game, essentially. Like, China has a really large population. People might know that. And London doesn't. In comparison, and in China, there's 3 Global Game Jam sites across the whole of China, in London alone, there's 56. So we're spread thin, but
so it was an unfair fight. Really.
Well, we were also the biggest in-person site, so that's another one for the books. We were the biggest in-person site.
Any more plans to run another game jam anytime soon? Or
so we were doing 3 game jams a year, but Global Game Jam takes so much out of us now, especially trying to do it so big that it becomes harder to gear up to do another one throughout the year, especially with everything else that we are doing. I would like us to get back to doing more jams throughout the year. There's a possible collaboration coming up actually with the universities called the universities that club together, and they call it Unijam, as in their collective is called Unijam, and they're taking part in jams throughout the year. And I believe it's the Brackies Game Jam. We're going to try and be involved in that with them, because it's the only way that we can consistently provide game jams is if we collaborate with other people. Because I think people don't realise like just how much work goes into game jams, or goes into anything that we do. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I guess for our audience, just keep an eye out on the Discord pages for any kind of fun stuff like that coming up. And thanks so much for today, Stuart. I guess the important thing to say is if there's anything that's kind of for audience, anything that's resonated with you today, or if you want to help out about for any events, or get involved, or anything you think that we need to be doing more, just let us know in Discord. Drop Stu or me a message, and I'll be happy to hear your feedback. So thanks so much, everyone, and stay tuned for more episodes coming up from GDL. If you haven't, check out the lovely new website and the shiny new branding. And if you're not on the Discord, jump on, and we hope to see you at an event over the coming months. Thanks so
guys.
much.
Bye.